Welcome to the Franchise Frontier, the podcast where we explore the evolving franchise landscape, dive into latest industry trends, and share actionable tools and tactics to help you build and grow your business.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Franchise Frontier podcast. Here we explore the world of business ownership, unlocking the keys to success while covering common pitfalls to avoid. Today, we're excited to welcome JT and Michelle Thompson. JT and Michelle are owners of Stand Strong Fencing of San Antonio, Texas. JT and Michelle are military vets from the Air Force and have been in the franchise space before with Red Wing Shoes and even had their hand in a real estate company. So a lot of really great insights for that. We're excited to have JT and Michelle on the episode of the podcast. So let's dive in. JT and Michelle, welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Glad to be here.
So Michelle, talk a little bit. Give us an overview of just like where it all started, right? Do it for yourself in particular. Did you have any entrepreneurial people in your life before you started? Kind of give us an overview of where this kind of started for you.
Well, I would say not a lot of entrepreneurship in my family at all. Everyone, my brothers, they all went in the military. So that was the start. We moved around a lot in the military as I followed JT. So we got to experience a lot of different atmospheres, different work areas, because I swapped jobs every single time we moved. So different leadership, lots of people with big ideas that we always talked about, like sometime in the future, this will happen, just not now. We started out we're actually really lucky. One of our first places that we lived was England, and we bought a house there. And we were super lucky to be able to do that at that time. And that's how we started. We started our first business after we sold that house in England. So that's where our real estate company came into play. When it came to the real estate, we actually spent 3 years gearing up for that opportunity. We read lots of books, lots of talking to each other and talking with different people who have been in the business before. So that's how we launched into our very first business. And it was one of the easier ones, I would say, because it was just us within the business. So there was no conflict really. It was easy to start out. We also had our regular jobs at the time too. So it was complementary.
So what about you? Talk to about, where did it start for you? Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur, or is this something that kind of just accumulated over time?
Yeah, I'm from Southeast Texas, kind of a poor upbringing, I would say. Very motivated to get out of my small town, and so I joined the Air Force. And in that time, 4 years, and then went to college, and then came back on active duty. We're always interested in small business ownership. I used to have a IT support business when I was a young airman living on base. I would go work on other folks' computers. This is back in the 90s. And so that was the first taste of it, having business cards and flyers and trying to get the word out there and make a little money on the side. And by the time we came back from England, we had a little capital in our pocket. And so we started Simpatico Properties in 2004 and started buying just rental houses to fix up and rent out. We were never flippers. We always had a long-term strategy. And because of that, we were able to continue to do other types of businesses down the road without ever taking on any debt. And so it just sort of grew naturally. There were several exit points that we considered transitioning to full-time business and leaving the military. But as you probably know, if you get past a certain point, it makes sense to stay to that 20-year mark. And so that's what we did. We ended up in San Antonio and then went to school, got an MBA, and then we built our first shoe store that Michelle's in right now. And then bought a second one on the east side of town. And then we're building a third one up the road in Bernie. But that experience, and I'm maybe rambling a little bit here, but that experience with Red Wing retail was very informative because up to that point, we'd never had employees. And so it was business ownership in the sense of we had rental properties, but we didn't have, and contractors, but we didn't have full-time employees. And so we learned a lot from the Red Wing process. And then There's some seasonality that occurs in retail that was a little tough to stomach. And after a few years of that, we figured out that we need to balance out some of the seasonality of retail with home services. Red Wing gets really, really busy in the fall, the holidays, and then early in the year. That's when the fence business slows down in theory. Hasn't really happened for us yet, but we also expect to get really, really busy right now this time of year when the shoe business slows down a little bit. So that's how we got to, I guess, to where we are with the two different businesses.
And so talk a little bit about JT, when you think about you getting out of that property management, not property management, excuse me, that, house flipping and those type of things, when you got into Red Wing and you first started a business with employees. Talk a little bit like how you navigated through that first year of being a business owner with employees. I'm sure there was a shock to it and kind of realized that there's a way and a strategy that works good for us, but you had to kind of navigate that around what you had been doing to what you're doing now. And then moving forward, how has that kind of helped you moving into other certain brands?
Military family, and so that affects our leadership style and our management style heavily. And we quickly learned that we can't treat all of our retail employees like young lieutenants and expect them to read the books you brought to work and help with their personal financial management. Because in the military, you have sort of a 100% responsibility and accountability for these young people. Um, it's a different model, obviously, with your employees. You still have a level of closeness and advisory role, but maybe not quite the same as you would in the military. We learned some early lessons about hiring and making sure that you're hiring for the right person, right seat, and then we really are big believers in growing managers from within. It's just the same way the military promotes, folks into the non-commissioned ranks as sergeants and as senior NCOs, senior non-commissioned officers. We do the same model for our business. We grow from the very young. They start as a retail associate or a sales manager before they can move up into a supervisor position.
Yeah, I think that probably lends itself a little bit to being able to kind of put a bow necessarily around, call it your core values and the core strategy, and still kind of stay with what you guys know specifically. Michelle, touch on a little bit, for you, what was one of the biggest surprises when you got into, your first business with employees?
Well, I would say people are the hardest part of the business. There's a lot of emotions that play out every single day. You learn something new about your associates, about yourself, how you manage people, how do you do conflict resolution. So that right there was a huge eye opener trying to figure that out because as real estate there are no emotions when it comes to that. It's pretty straightforward. It's houses. But when it comes to having employees, there's a lot of emotion that comes into play. They each have their own lives and their lives take away from the business. And we have to accommodate that as well as trying to accommodate them trying to make a living as well. That was a huge eye opener because I've never really had to worry about somebody else. I mean, in the military, we do, but it's like everyone is a huge family. And if one person falls, you pick them back up and we all keep going. It's different when it comes to a civilian, in essence, because it's some are very standoffish and they don't want you to know anything about their lives. But it's like, okay, you came in here and you're not in a very good mood, and why not? What can I do? How am I gonna change your attitude so you can be a happy employee here and help our customers? So that's that was a real challenge for me because I really didn't have to have that skill before.
So now JT, let's pivot a little bit. Like you said, you own a few locations of Red Wings. And so then you decided, hey, we need something else, right? And talk a little bit about how you guys pivoted to Stand Strong Fencing and how that has kind of taken off for you in day in the life.
Yeah, for sure. So our franchise consultant or a franchise advisor, Terry, kind of helped us through the initial selection process, and it's how we landed with Red Wing. It made sense that we would call her up again when we were looking to do something else. In the military, we always you try to work yourself out of a job. And what I mean by that is you establish these processes and procedures that can run almost independently with very little touch. I think that applies really well to the business world, especially if you're looking to scale and grow. You need to establish processes and procedures that will run with little touch. She's done that in the stores, queen of standard operating procedures. And I believe in having a very standardized process here at Stand Strong.
I would imagine she runs the SOP at home as well.
And we have shared responsibilities there. I do all the cooking, so
Great.
I'm a cleanup guy. But um, I'm trying to think of other examples. Right, what brought us to Stand Strong? The seasonality, looking for something that was a good complementary business to Red Wing. Scale, we wanted something that could scale faster. It's um, the time that it takes to fully develop a shoe store is significant, and home services is much faster. So in addition to having a diversified businesses, retail and home services, it's also good to have them. They develop at different speeds. And so that allows you to focus very intensely on the one that's growing super fast and be patient with the long runner.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine, in any sort of business, any sort of franchise business or any business in general, oftentimes the ramp up is different, right? It is different and really have to figure out where it fits best for you. JT, talk a little bit at Stand Strong about a typical day in the life of a business owner.
It's exciting. Every day is different, as you probably imagine. Being in home services means that you're going to interact with a very broad range of folks on a daily basis, whether it's your subcontractors, your sales guys, your suppliers, your customers, and that makes for a very short day. It's end of the day before you know it. Spend a lot of time trying to standardize kind of our process for getting jobs out to the guys and getting supplies, materials picked up. We're starting to do larger jobs. And so we're testing the bounds of the system that we've put in place. And when you start getting into these large commercial jobs and you have truckloads of materials coming in, it's just a whole different game. I'm grateful we have a warehouse and we've done some very large jobs out of here, but we're already outgrowing the size of this place. And so we're finding external storage for this materials that we're ordering.
Yeah, and talk a little bit, oftentimes I know that people that run a Stand Strong Fencing, it is considered a subcontractor model, but obviously you're able to have your own team if you so choose. Talk a little bit about when you guys built out that team. I know that oftentimes in the discovery process, people are always wondering like, where am I ever going to find people to do the roof or do the fence or do those kind of things? But just talk about how that process was for you guys.
Sure. I'll preface it as well. We started with two salespeople, which you typically just start with one. And I think it's because of our hiring experience. We know that if you're going to go through this painful hiring process, you probably want to get a second one just in case. We had the capital at the time to make that investment. And so we had some personnel turnover about 3 months later. And then we ended up hiring a third salesperson just so we could grow faster because we were filling out the leads and we had a full deck of appointments. So when it came to contractors, it isn't remarkably easy to find folks that want to do work. In fact, your phone rings off the hook. It's a question of vetting them and then just keeping the best so that the folks that will represent your brand the best. We've only been open a year. Like I said, we have three sales folks. We were getting ready to hire a fourth, and I'm trying to figure out if it's the right time, but we run 5 to 6 crews right now. The job board is very full, and we're always vetting, you're always hiring, right? So you're always vetting new contractors that you meet, whether it's at the supply yard or, out on a job site.
Yeah, that's what I was actually just going to ask you if you felt like a lot of those connections oftentimes are met at the supply yard, but you touched on that a little bit there as well.
For sure.
Michelle, when it comes to business ownership, doesn't matter what business we're talking about. Can you talk about what part of the job that you find the most rewarding?
Well, that's easy. That would be customer satisfaction. So whether it's somebody for Stand Strong, coming back, giving a 5-star review saying it was a great product, it was a great experience, that like right there makes it worthwhile. When it comes to our shoe business, a customer coming back saying, I was here last year and customer service was great and you guys fit me in the right boot. I loved it. That like makes my day. So it's everyone just doing what they're supposed to do And then at the end of the day, having a great customer feedback saying, you guys did a great job.
Fantastic. And JT, when you think about business, what sort of always keeps you on your toes?
I was hoping you're going to ask me about my favorite part. They're related, actually,
Yeah, I was gonna say you're more than welcome to touch on the favorite part and
for
what keeps you
sure.
on your.
Yeah. I love paying people. I know that sounds really strange, but it is definitely the most gratifying part of the job because we look and you see what kind of impact you're having on people's lives. And for us, it's not just the three sales guys that we have with our branded trucks, it's the six crews and all of their guys. And when they show up with a brand new F-250 and they've been doing work for us for about 6 months, I know it's working. The system's working. And so that is the part that probably keeps you most on your toes, right? Is cash flow and making sure that your lifeline stays healthy. One of the things that I've told many people when we talk to folks about this type of business, home services business versus retail, I'm always remarking about the fact that the cash flow is healthy. And that's one of the things that helps you sleep at night is that the bank is in good situation and you can survive if you hit a rough spot. When we first opened, I was thinking about a lot of the way we do with the shoe store where you have to have a certain level. Home services, cash is always coming in. That's the remarkable part. And I would, kind of paranoid check because Ritz do like, oh, there's plenty of money in the account. We're doing fine. It's probably not always going to be that way. There's times when you have really big projects that require you to have a large outlay for material, but I'm very, very pleased with the cash flow situation for the home services.
Well, that's a really good insight. I wonder. This kind of leads into my next question. How do you see yourself, and how do you balance working in the business versus working on the business?
We talked about this a lot last night. We had a strategy session over a bottle of wine and a fire pit in the backyard. So it's expected for you to work, I would say, very much in the business, at least initially. I put boots on people's feet for the first 6 months because you really want to understand your business well. It's impossible to hire someone for the job that you don't know. You also don't have the ability to hold them accountable for what the performance expectations are. And so right now, I'm very much still working in the business. Michelle is moving towards on the business, you know, account development and kind of pulling up to the strategic level a bit. But I expect at some point I'm going to be able to step back. I'm trying to grow our team so that they can fill some of the roles that I'm currently filling and hire a production side and allow me to step back and do more of the up and out type work.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there's a lot to be said for that advice in terms of it's very difficult to hire someone to do a job you don't know anything about. And that's even as a franchisor, we can only do so much until you really understand the business. Michelle, my question to you would be if you had somebody that was considering becoming a business owner, what advice would you give them?
I would say do as much research as possible before diving into that industry. There's a lot of things in our first year, just in our shoe business, that we found we didn't know about. You don't know what you don't know. And that first year, that's what happens. Everything with inspections or, safety standards or taxes that you didn't know that you had to pay because you're in Texas or wherever you live or city requirements. Try to get as much information that you can grab before making that decision. Because the more you know, the better your understanding of your commitment, what could possibly go wrong or what could go more smoothly, the more that you know.
JP, same question to you, advice. And then the next part of that would be, what are some things that they should ask or know before taking the lead?
Yeah, I'd written down last night, know thyself, your strengths and weaknesses. And this ties back into the hiring as well. You've got to hire for the skills that you're not great at, right? And so the first step of that is acknowledging that you're not great at everything. And so those skills that you're going to have to work on, you need to hire to those for sure.
And then based on skill, do you think that there is a certain skill or trait that's kind of essential for running a successful business?
Yeah, that was on the bottom page too. It's grit. Just absolute grit. I mean, willingness to do what it takes to see it through. You're going to have setbacks, and that's the nature of being in business. But if you've got the wherewithal to see it through and push, you're gonna be fine. I think a lot of times folks may go into business thinking that it's a passive activity, and it's definitely not. Not if you want to be successful anyway. And just being fully invested in it with the hope, that if you do it well, you are going to be able to step back and work on other things. But you got to put the time in.
Absolutely. And Michelle, what do you think? Is there a certain trait that pops into your head when you think about someone thinking about business ownership?
I would agree with know your strengths and your weaknesses. And also when it comes to business, you have to have basic office skills, like how to run a spreadsheet, because you're going to need that to actually look at your business and do analysis and be able to figure out, am I running it correctly? Am I losing money? Do I have too much labor or too little labor? Can I grow the business by hiring more? Like you can't do that without some basic office skills. So I would say that if you have to go and take some computer courses for how to manipulate Microsoft documents and stuff, I would highly recommend that.
That's a good point. JT, if you had to start it all over again, right? Is there something you would do differently to prepare for owning a business?
Maybe not don't be quite so conservative. We had a discussion about this, like because by nature we're risk averse, right? We don't like to I don't like to borrow, I don't like to take big risks, and so we tend to probably be too slow at times. We probably could have gone faster. And keep in mind that we built that store during COVID, and the bank looked at me like I was crazy when I walked in asking for a loan. And so, a few years later, now that we're established, it seems like now everyone wants to help you out. But given the opportunity again, I think I would push and try to do more sooner because the systems work. I mean, that's why I'm not a very creative guy. Good at operationalizing, fine tuning systems. I'm an operations logistics kind of background as a signal officer, and that's what we love to do. And so use the system, and the system will, take care of itself. Just apply it and put the grit to it.
For sure. And Michelle, when you think back to, your guys' time in business, is there, and this might, I would imagine this is going to cause a giggle. Is there one lesson or mistake from your experience that every business owner should hear?
You're going to fumble. I mean, it's guaranteed. Don't expect it to be all peaches and rainbows and everything. Be prepared because you will fail. It may be a little failure, but you're going to fail. And I would say the one thing is make sure that you can get back up just because something didn't work out correctly the first time. It's okay. You learn, and that's how you grow. Every day we learn something new, especially in both of our businesses. Nothing is the same. Every day there's something new, and we fail at certain things and are still growing. So I would say be prepared to fail, but also be prepared to learn.
Absolutely. JT, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was thinking about the time that we got in trouble for having that glue in the store that we didn't know we weren't allowed to sell. Um, this goes back to the thing that Michelle was talking about, knowing the rules, and it's super important for you to have allies in this effort. I had a SCORE mentor. I don't know, not sure if you're familiar with that organization, but it's a small business coaching type entity. And having a senior business mentor that can kind of talk you through what you're about to get into, I found that to be super helpful. Like she said, you're still going to make mistakes, you're going to miss some things, but why not take 90% of that out of the way so things will run a little bit smoother?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. I know we talked before we started the podcast, what's next kind of vision. JT, you want to talk a little bit about your philanthropy efforts and those type of things that are kind of on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah, so we started it's a donor advised fund called Stavali Organization, and we've been doing work through it since 2021. A lot of it was COVID related, but our two big things are workforce development and education. We feel like that's the great leveler. Like no matter what your background is, if you have an opportunity to get an education, it can help you level up to someone that may have had opportunities that you did not. And so going forward in this year, because Stand Strong is doing so well, we're going to be able to put quite a bit of money behind that. And there's a thing that I think most small business owners know. You're able to do philanthropy, but you can also do philanthropy that promotes the business, and it's a virtuous cycle. So the business becomes more successful and you get to put more money into your philanthropy. And I have no problem with Stand Strong name being the marching band or the Chamber of Commerce events or any of the stuff we do with the city of San Antonio. But the more you do, the more you have opportunities to promote the philanthropy work that we're so passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you guys have already grown some territory in your time of being with Stand Strong. But as you look at just Stand Strong as an individual business, and then as you look at what's next, just from the hearing what we talked about, it may be a bigger warehouse. I'm not sure. But Michelle, what do you see as maybe what's the next thing? And maybe it's doubling down on operations. What do you see for what's next for Stand Strong?
Well, I would definitely say a bigger warehouse, a bigger yard, maybe um, a place where we could have an office and everyone will be able to come in and do loads, be our own supplier in essence. That would be like the next big step for us, being a little bit more self-sufficient, getting more equipment that will help our crews out. Um, yeah, it's just expanding. I don't see a limit. All I can see is growth.
That's a good thing. And JT, when you look at, you guys have both been business owners for a amount of time now. JT, how do you see the role of a business owner evolving as the industry changes and even AI comes into play?
Yeah, that's a really good question because AI tends to be the great disruptor to a lot of your plans. It's a thinking game, and being able to use your humanity, I guess, to grow the business smartly. This is also related to paying people, but I feel like a business owner's obligation is to maybe educate people out of their current roles. And one of the things that frustrated me a little bit on the retail side is that folks kind of cap out. You can only pay people so much in a retail setting just because the income from the shoe business or whatever. I was really excited about this because there's really no caps, and we've set a target for everybody. If I should say this in front of the other store, but to make six figures in their first year, gosh, that's an amazing thing, right? And that's the real role of a small business owner today is to try to figure out how to take care of your folks and grow your business in a smart way. There is one other part that I like even more than paying people, and that's driving the forklift. I think it's just the most fun. I mean, I got to take 22,000 pounds of Trex material off the back of a flatbed the other day, and it was like a little kid. It's very rewarding.
That's why they have those things. I've seen a couple companies that have these just massive sand pits where guys like ourselves can just go out and just dig for no reason and not
Yeah.
break anything. So
Yeah.
there's a reason for that. Michelle, quickly, for someone listening right now who's maybe on the edge of launching their dream and they're just, they just don't know, what's your message to them?
Take the plunge. It's worth it. Because if you don't, you'll never know, and you'll forever be regretting it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, from being a football coach, I kind of have a set of questions here that I'll ask you just for fun. We call them a little 3 and out. So, JT, what's your go-to unwind after a crazy day?
She knows it's cooking dinner, and it's cooking dinner. And it's usually with wine, but it's an absolute change from what you've been doing all day long. So it's great.
I have now that reminds me of another question. Is there a favorite dinner that you have to cook or a favorite dinner, Michelle, that you like for him to cook?
I do a lot of Thai and Korean cooking. We used to do mainly European type stuff, but we've become so adventurous now. We make our own kimchi and do a lot of fun Asian cuisine. Do a lot of salmon
This is
bowls and anyway, things like that.
this is where Michelle chimes in and goes, "I'm kinda tired of Thai," but,
No, no,
no,
no. Pretty
Vietnamese.
much everything that he cooks, it's great. And what's funny is
fantastic.
a lot of times we have lots of leftovers. So I get to bring them into work, and sometimes everyone gets to taste a little bit and get a little jealous.
Still cooking like there's four kids at home, so
Yeah.
we end up bringing the food to work.
That's good too. That's another way to take care of your people. Let me pause on my 3 and out and go back. JT, you brought up something earlier and I wanted to touch on it. You had mentioned something about when we talked about growing, right? Growing your business. And you mentioned something before we started about how, everybody wants to grow nationally, right? But really what you can do is you can really be a staple in your community and in your local area. I just wanted you to touch on that a little bit, that you've come to that realization. You say, how we grow nationally is how we grow nationally, but we want to be, for who we are in our community. I wanted you to just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, and it applies to kind of what our long-term retirement plans were as well. At one point, we thought we'd be doing national political stuff and run around the country. And we've discovered that it's so much more rewarding to dig into your local community. Not only do your dollars go a lot further because you can have a big impact at a smaller price, but your time is just it counts, and the people know who you are, and you're a known quantity, and it's possible to have a really big impact. And I'm grateful that we're not moving every 18 months, and so this is our opportunity to dig in and do good for the city of San Antonio.
And would you say that in the home service space in general, that people that really dig into their community and become a staple in the community, it obviously helps drive the business?
Yeah, it's a virtuous cycle for sure. Those 5-star reviews are king, especially when they have testimonials and pictures of the guys and their new fence. But you become very much integrated, and we use Nextdoor and some other platforms to get the word out about our business. Referrals, you live and die by them, and so every successful job is an opportunity to do 2 more.
Fantastic. Diving back in, Michelle, what's your go-to unwind after a crazy day besides eating Thai food?
Well, typically it's grabbing a glass of wine and sitting at the counter and watching JT cook, and we are discussing our days. That's kind of how we unwind.
That's awesome. And so now that being said, JT, are you a coffee, tea, or an energy drink person?
I'm definitely a coffee guy. Yeah, couple cups in the morning. We do like our Columbia.
Michelle, what about you?
2 cups of coffee.
You guys are a couple of a couple, right? You guys do it all together. That's probably the. No, to be honest with you, the more I look back on, you think about your military career, you think about your family career, you think about the businesses that you're running. You guys are the heart of that. You guys being a good team makes it better to run a good team, right? So hats off to you guys for that in that space as well. I think that there's oftentimes that, I think that especially in business ownership, there's nothing better than having a great business partner within the home.
Talk about modeling a lot and certain behaviors. It's from the military, and you look up to the folks that if they're doing the job right, you want to be like them. And so I like to think that you're having a positive influence on people, just like you want to surround yourself with people that are having a positive influence on you. And by modeling the correct behaviors at work, we move the needle a little bit because everybody has stuff, they've got different backgrounds. And if you can provide a little bit of stability and help them be better at personal financial management or, making life decisions, that's all part of the small business ownership thing.
Absolutely. For everybody, thanks for joining us on the Franchise Frontier podcast. I hope today gave you a clear look into the journey of business ownership. And if business ownership is calling your name, don't ignore it. The playbook's out there. The question is, are you ready to run it? Remember to like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. JT and Michelle, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Dave. This was fun.
Thank you.